This is 7 News.
Tonight, Queensland's flood emergency, death and devastation. Thousands of homes underwater. Aerial rescues and thousands evacuated as the city of Bundaberg goes under. The damage left behind by ATM bandits. Can you help police catch them? And an angry mob confronts Colin Barnett.
From the studios of 7 Perth, Rick Ardon.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the Queensland flood crisis, which has now claimed 3 lives. Dozens of residents have been rescued from rooftops. The state's main highway has been severed and entire suburbs are underwater. Bundaberg, north of Brisbane, is facing the worst flood in the city's history. The Lockyer Valley, which bore the brunt of the 2011 floods, has been seriously affected again. And while the rain is easing in the state's southeast, authorities fear worse is to come.
Surrounded by water. 2 farmers stranded, rescued from the roof of their ute in the rural town of Beaudesert, south of Brisbane.
There's a boat heading towards them.
There it is.
One of many rescues across southeast Queensland. A boy is in a critical condition after his family was hit by a falling tree while they watched rising floodwaters in Brisbane's north.
I stopped here and I heard the crack and I thought it was a car accident.
The mother and son pinned by the branches. The boy was rescued first with a critical head injury. While he was treated, the crews worked to free his mother, who suffered a broken leg.
If you don't have to be out in this sort of weather, stay at home.
At least 3 people have drowned in floodwaters in Bundaberg, Gympie and near Ipswich. Others are missing. In Gympie, the Mary River peaked at 20.3 metres, flooding the CBD. The Brisbane River burst its banks in several places. It's expected to peak at midday tomorrow, again on Wednesday. 4,000 homes and 1,200 businesses could be affected. Not as bad as the 2011 flood, but that's no relief for those hit last time.
We're just doing what we can and we'll see how it works.
You must take action.
Many in flood-prone suburbs evacuated today ahead of a high tide tonight, saving anything they could.
Probably about here. That's if their predictions are right.
You've been through it before, you know what it's like. It's a terrible feeling, I know.
I'm thinking positive.
6 gum trees fell on one house in Brisbane's inner east. On the Gold Coast, a window crashed into the street from the Q1 skyscraper, one of the world's tallest buildings. 80 km/h winds caused plenty of damage and erosion. Roofs ripped away. Police have warned people to stay indoors.
I blew my TV up. I've lost my stereo. And I got no insurance.
The Gold Coast airport has been closed, traffic lights out, more than 10,000 homes and businesses without power. This is Alexandra Headland on the Sunshine Coast. Sea foam whipped up by ex-cyclone Oswald up to 3 metres deep, enough to almost bury this bus and completely bury a car.
Oh, there's a car!
As Oswald moves south, New South Wales has been hit with torrential rain too. The northern town of Mullumbimby got 540 millimetres in 24 hours, more than half of Perth's annual rainfall. Tracy Moran, 7 News.
And residents who live along the Brisbane River are facing a tense night as they brace for high tide later this evening. As we've heard, waters are expected to peak at midday tomorrow. Lee Jelisic is in Brisbane, where he's been following the flood emergency. Back at home, police have released security video of an ATM bandit who blew up 3 teller machines on Australia Day. The Harbour Town shopping centre was extensively damaged. The thief got away empty-handed. Grant Taylor reports.
Police say whoever did this was lucky not to have blown themselves apart. Explosives were strapped to the sides of 2 of these cash machines. The resulting blast touched almost everything within a 25-metre radius. There's even damage to the roof up on the level above. This is how the explosion looked from up on that first floor. There's a flash of orange and then the whole building seems to shake. People in neighbouring apartment blocks felt their buildings vibrate. The attempt to hide the attack by timing it to go off during the Australia Day fireworks fooled nobody. Police were on the scene within minutes, but the offender or offenders had already fled. Security cameras show a man in a hoodie running up an escalator away from the cash machines 15 seconds after the blast. All this damage, though, was essentially for nothing. The cash boxes were still safely inside the machines, the thieves getting away empty-handed. Harbour Town was closed again today as repair crews moved in. About 10,000 people would normally walk through the doors on a public holiday Monday. Centre management says the complex will reopen tomorrow, but some shops could be closed for days. The damage bill is still being tallied, but it could be anywhere between $500,000 and $1 million. Grant Taylor, 7 News.
Premier Colin Barnett has clashed with protesters in a visit to Broome to promote his government's environmental record. The meeting was peaceful, but ended with Mr Barnett demanding respect and walking off. Here's political editor Geof Parry.
The development of James Price Point north of Broome for an LNG hub still dogs the Premier. There's no common ground.
Look, the Kimberley is a vast area, and I know no one here agrees with me. I understand that. I'm being respectful, young girl. I expect you to be respectful. Okay, all right, thank you.
They jeered as Mr Barnett was escorted to an invite-only function. But the Premier was unmoved.
I'm a strong advocate of developing James Price Point as the one and only LNG site on the whole Kimberley coast.
The protest has taken the edge off the Premier's purpose in visiting Broome to announce a new marine park around the horizontal falls in Talbot Bay. And Labor has kicked off its March 9 election campaign, the opposition leader joined by his wife and 3 children.
I think the time for the phoning campaign is over. I think the time for the real campaign has now begun.
The centrepiece will focus on road congestion and competing public transport plans. Labor has MetroNet, a massive expansion of heavy rail around the metro area.
A wonderful plan to fix the congestion crisis once and for all. We can't afford not to build MetroNet.
Both major parties have a heavy schedule in front of them to sell their message to voters. Shopping centre visits are bread and butter for politicians and would-be politicians. Over the next several weeks, expect to see them at a centre near you. Geof Parry, 7 News.
There's been a dramatic sea rescue off Rottnest this afternoon. A fishing boat was swamped by big waves and capsized. It happened 7 kilometres southwest of the island about 4 o'clock. One man was winched to safety by the rescue helicopter. 4 other men were picked up by the Rottnest Island Ranger. All of the men were taken to Perth for checkups. A Perth coroner has visited a music festival as part of an inquest into a teenage girl's death. Gemma Toms died 4 years ago after taking ecstasy at the Big Day Out festival. Alexis Donkin reports.
Police and sniffer dogs looking for drugs at today's Big Day Out. By 1 o'clock, 2 people had already been caught out, allegedly stopped with amphetamines and cannabis. Also at today's Big Day Out, WA coroner Dominic Mulligan, a rare move to get a first-hand insight into the drug overdose of 17-year-old Gemma Toms at the same festival 4 years ago. The coroner has already been told how Gemma Toms took 3 ecstasy pills. The teenager was treated at a first aid tent, but she was let back into the festival. A friend told the inquest Gemma lied about her age and what she'd taken to the volunteers who helped her. A short time later, she began convulsing. Gemma died a day later in hospital.
Gemma Toms' family hopes the findings from this inquest will prevent another death like this one in WA.
St John's first aid resources have been significantly boosted at the festival since Gemma Toms' death. As we go to where 26 people have been caught with drugs, including LSD and ecstasy. Police have issued 45 move-on notices. Alexis Donkin, 7 News.
The father of a Perth man who disappeared almost 3 years ago says he believes his son has been murdered. Brian Pollard says not knowing what happened to his son Dean has been hard to live with and he needs answers. Rob Scott reports.
For Brian Pollard, just thinking about his son is difficult.
Well, I just
tend to bottle it up and not talk about it.
Brian hasn't seen or spoken to Dean in almost 3 years, and for him, time hasn't made life easier.
I'm a realist, and the likelihood is that we're not going to see him again.
Do you think he's been murdered, or...?
We think so.
The 44-year-old was last seen alive in late May 2010. That last sighting was here at the McDonald's on Great Eastern Highway in Midland. Police initially thought that Dean may have travelled to Tasmania to visit his daughter. They now believe he never left Perth, and they're treating this case as a homicide.
And all you can hope for is that if that is the way he's gone, then he didn't suffer, and it went quickly.
Not knowing what happened to his son has been incredibly hard for Brian, but in a way, he says it's also been a blessing.
At least then there's, you know, you've still got a, even if it's only a 1% chance that he may have just dropped out and decided to disappear.
Rob Scott, 7 News.
A man has been charged with attacking and injuring a police dog. Vector needed 8 staples to his head after he was hurt while chasing down 2 men, allegedly seen breaking into a home in Shoalwater on the weekend. Despite his injuries, Vector managed to chase the men through a creek before biting one of the alleged offenders and holding him until police arrived. A 24-year-old man has been charged with cruelty to animals. Extraordinary video has been captured of a 5-metre great white shark attacking a small fishing boat. It happened on the weekend near the Victorian-South Australian border.
As the 5-metre great white shark loomed closer, excitement turned to fear.
There's a great white circling the boat. Oh,
Seeing it so close to the boat and so calm, the young men initially didn't think it posed any risk and decided to push their luck.
Joel touched it first because he had the camera in the water, and as it came past he touched it, and then obviously once he touched it I was like, I'm definitely going to try and touch it.
But after 20 minutes the shark became aggressive.
Came up and bumped the side of the boat, which we thought it might have accidentally done. I think then it circled away out the back and came up straight towards the back of the boat, opened its mouth up and you saw its teeth.
The boys believe the shark had been attracted to electrical pulses coming from anodes on the engine, designed to stop it rusting.
The sword serrations on his teeth have just scratched all the paint off on the top there.
Experts from the Melbourne Aquarium say there's no need for concern.
The animal itself is definitely a dangerous species. However, their behaviours and their activities along the coast, pose very little threat to anyone.
I'm glad I wasn't in the water, that's for sure.
Christy Cooper, 7 News.
Why the search for a missing prospector has been called off. That's next. The search for a prospector missing in the goldfields for more than a fortnight has been called off. Reporter Amelia Broome has been following events in Menzies.
Police say this 15-day search has been one of the biggest undertaken in WA, and this afternoon authorities made the decision to call it off. For the past 2 weeks, planes and a helicopter have been used to conduct aerial patrols. SES volunteers were on the ground, and a specialist trail bike team was also brought in from Perth to assist with the 2,500 square kilometre search area. But there hasn't been any sign of Michael Graham since last Tuesday, when a makeshift camp was found on a nearby station. A water trough appeared to have been slept in, and SOS was found written in the dirt. Michael Graham disappeared while prospecting with his friend Peter Holloway. Police today confirmed that as a matter of course, the Major Crime Squad has interviewed Mr Holloway, but do not believe he is in any way linked to Mr Graham's disappearance. The case will now officially become a missing persons investigation. It will also be referred to the coroner.
More than 230 people have died in a nightclub fire in Brazil. Investigators suspect the tragedy was sparked by a pyrotechnics display which triggered a deadly stampede.
Perth's #1, Australia's #1.